evening, everybody. Matt and I just got home from seeing the Bob Dylan biopic movie with Timothy Chalamet, A Complete Unknown, and we will be reviewing it in our wrap-up video on April 13th. Tonight, I am here to do a video about reading plans for the spring, and I will be talking about some books that you should check out that are set in the same time period as A Complete Unknown. And also go over some reading progress. I'll get to those books in a second. I just want to go review my general TBR first. The first book I wanted to talk about today is Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. This was her new release from last month. It came out on February 4th. And so I have liked most of her books, but this one just didn't hit with me. There was an overkill of references to 50 Shades of Grey, which I refuse to read because it's too sexual. So most of her books are pretty spicy, but this one was extra spicy, which was a turnoff because there was too much BDSM in it, and I thought her boyfriend Lucas was really controlling. The main female character's name is Scarlett, and she has a lot of issues he's dealing with so this is set at Stanford University in Connecticut, and it focuses around a diver on the competitive diving team. Her name is Scarlett, and she is seeing a therapist to deal with recovering from an injury and trauma related to the injury, and also unpacking some trauma that she has had from her childhood because her dad was really abusive. And in a way, I think the main character, Lucas, who is the swimmer on a competitive swimming team for Stanford University, is very controlling and manipulative in the bedroom, which was a really big turnoff for me. I usually like the male main characters in Ali Hazelwood's romances, including the vampire main character in Bride, but in this book, I could have cared less about him. So, unfortunately, this book gets a pretty low rating from me, and I was actually kind of disappointed in it because I was highly anticipating it. 2.5 out of 5. The next book is a reread, Jeanette McCurdy's memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died. I got this for my birthday in 2023 from my sister, and this is my first time rereading it since I originally received it. So I was out of college by the time iCarly was originally airing on TV on Nickelodeon. Or Disney Channel. Was it Disney Channel? I think it was Disney Channel. But anyway, I'm watching it for the first time, and we just watched the pilot episode 2 weeks ago, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I can't wait to watch more and see how, the dynamics between Jeanette McCurdy's character and Miranda Cosgrove's character and the guy who plays Freddy. I can't wait to see how their dynamic works out. There is a fan theory that this show is a spin-off to Drake and Josh, and Megan is Drake and Josh's little sister, and then Jerry Trainor's character, who plays Carly's older brother, was the guy Crazy Steve, who worked in the movie theater. And the theory states that Carly and Spencer are part of witness protection, and they had to change their identities because of something and move out of state from where they lived in wherever Drake and Josh is set. I have not watched Drake and Josh yet, so I don't know where that show is supposed to be set, but iCarly is set in Seattle, Washington. The next book is a book I heard about on Sarah Without an H's recent video where she talked about books that she needs to read on her TBR. This book is by a graphic artist who is known for a lot of memes with animated characters holding their fists up like this. This book is called Hyperbole and a Half: Unfortunate Situations, Flawed Coping Mechanisms, Mayhem, and Other Things That Happen by Ali Borsch. So far, I am on page 150. And I'm glad my mom died. I am on page 80 in my reread. So not very far along yet. The next book is a book about a romantic comedy book about astrology that I picked up at the library earlier this week. I started it on Tuesday. At the moment, I am on page 214, chapter 21. Hoping to finish this tomorrow or maybe Monday. The next book I am currently reading that I picked up at the library today is Alison Saff's new release, Wings of Starlight. This is a Tinkerbell retelling. That is Alison Saff's latest release that just came out literally a week ago. So I'm really excited to be reading this. Currently I am on chapter 6, page 74. And I have read 2 other books by Alison Saff. Her prior new release from last October, A Dark and Drowning Tide, which I gave 3.5 stars to, and A Fragile Enchantment, which I gave 3 stars to, and I still need to read A Far Wilder Magic. So I really hope I like this book better than her other 2 books, and then I still also need to read A Far Wilder Magic, like I said. So now I'm going to get into my spring reading plans. To make my TBR more digestible this month, I have decided to do thematic TBRs again, which focus on certain themes. The first theme I wanted to talk about is St. Patrick's Day, which is on Monday. So it's Luck of the Irish. The books that I have read for this TBR are this short and sweet little book called Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan, which I have heard about on Book Talk from Jack Edwards, and I think Carrie Kin Reads read it too, but I can't remember what videos they reviewed it in. This book was part of Oprah's book club last year, and I really loved it. This is a holiday book that is set in Ireland at Christmas time, and I really loved the family dynamics of this family and the holiday setting. The next book on my Luck of the Irish TBR for March is My Lucky Charm, which is an audiobook that I just finished reading by Courtney Walsh, who is the same author of Summer of Yes and The Happy Life of Isadora Bentley. All 3 of these books were recommended to me by Jess at These Lyrics and Lines. Courtney Walsh is definitely one of my newest auto-read authors. All of the books that I have read by her have been 4.5 or 5 stars. And My Lucky Charm is a hockey romance that focuses on Eloise, who gets a job working for this hockey player named Grayson Hawk, and his 10-year-old daughter Scarlett comes to live with him. And my favorite thing about this book was the dynamic between Eloise, Grayson, and his daughter. I thought it was very sweet. The next book in this TBR is Angela's Ashes, which is Frank McCourt's memoir about growing up in Ireland with his family. This book will be reviewed in the next episode of the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR podcast that I'm doing with Kathleen. We read the book last month and are watching the movie on Saturday, and Matt will be also chiming in the video with his opinions of the film, which we are watching next Saturday for Kathleen's birthday. The next book is a memoir I just started listening to an audiobook on Thursday called We Don't Know Ourselves by Fintan O'Toole. This was recommended to me by Olive at A Book Olive. She is where I get all of my nonfiction recommendations from, basically. So if her name is mentioned more than once in this video or future videos, don't be too surprised by that. So this is a modern retelling of this is a modern history of stuff that is currently going on in Ireland. So I just started on Thursday and I'm only on chapter chapter 7 of the audiobook. The next thematic TBR that I am doing for March and April is called Let's Go to the Movies. This TBR focuses on a list of book recommendations I found on Instagram that have similar topics or are books that inspire the scripts of Oscar-nominated movies. The first book I wanted to talk about was paired up with the movie that I just got back from seeing, A Great Unknown with Timothée Chalamet, and it is called We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix. Grady Hendrix has been mostly a 4 to 5 star author for me, except for his most recent release, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, which was released in the middle of January, and that book got three stars. This book is a horror book that is set in the 1970s during the same time as J.Z. Jones and the Six. I will read you what it is about. Every morning, Chris Pulaski wakes up in the halls. Oh, okay, this is set in the 1990s. In the 1990s, she was lead guitarist of Dirt at Work, a heavy metal band on the brink of breakout success, until lead singer Terry Hunt embarked on a solo career and rocketed to stardom, leaving her bandmates to rot in obscurity. Now, Chris works as a night manager of a Best Western. She's tired, broken, and happy. Then one day, everything changes. A shocking act of violence turns her life upside down, and she begins to suspect that Terry sabotaged more than just the band. Chris hits the road, hoping to reunite Dirt Work and confront the man who ruined her life. Her journey will take her from the Pennsylvania Rust Belt to a celebrity rehab center to a satanic music festival. A furious power ballad about never giving up. We Sold Our Souls is an epic journey into the heart of a conspiracy-crazed, pill-popping, paranoid country that seems to have lost its very soul. This is another 4.5 star read. The next book is a book that I heard about on a video that Sarah Caroli posted a couple of years ago. I can't remember which wrap-up she reviewed this book in, but this book is called Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau, and this is about a 14-year-old girl who lives in Baltimore in the 1970s, and she's pretty sheltered, and her parents are really strict, so she gets a summer job as a nanny for her neighbors down the road who have kids who are 10 and 7, I think, and it's basically her coming of age story about how she is around this family for the whole summer, and their household is run very differently than hers, and she, while babysitting for these kids, she learns the comparisons that these parents have in the structure of how they run their household to her parents. I just started this book this afternoon, and I am on chapter 5, page 81. The next TBR that I wanted to talk about is the TBR that I put together for Earth Day, which is basically the books that are set in nature. I'm rereading a bunch of books from last year for this TBR, The Light Pirate, and Their Eyes Were Watching God. Okay, that's only 2. I just finished reading the ebook of Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey, which was recommended to me by Gabby Reeds, because she hasn't read this yet. She recently mentioned it in a book haul video that she posted a couple of days ago, and she said that she read 2 other books by this author called Migrations and When the Wolves Come Home, and that she really liked them. And I took her advice and checked out this book, and I have no idea what she will give it for a rating, but I gave it 5 stars because I love the setting. I was immediately transported. This book is set in Antarctica in the early 20th century, and it's basically about global warming and how the earth is changing rapidly because of it. The next book on my For the Beauty of the Earth TBR for Earth Day is A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. This is a novella that is kind of like sci-fi, and it's been centuries since the robots of Punga gained self-awareness and laid down their tools, centuries since they wandered en masse into the wilderness, never to be seen again. Centuries since they faded into myth and urban legend. One day, the life of a tea monk is upended by the arrival of a robot there to honor the old premise of checking in. The robot has one question: what do people need? But the answer to that question depends on who you ask and how. They're going to need to ask it a lot. So I am on chapter 3, and I have already read 50 pages of this book. It's a pretty short novella, so I should finish it by tomorrow quite easily, along with the other novella that I'm reading for book club at the bookstore called The River Has Roots by Amal El-Mortar, one of the authors of This Is How You Lose the Time War. The River Have Roots, by the way, which I'm almost done with, is going to be getting 5 stars. Another book I'm listening to on audio for this TBR right now is The Wild Robot, which was made into an Oscar-nominated movie that was nominated for Best Animated Picture but didn't win. So I haven't seen The Wild Robot yet, but I am listening to the audiobook, and I've seen the trailers for The Wild Robot, but I haven't seen the whole movie. So I can just picture how the animators of this movie brought it to the screen, and I can't wait to watch it. The next book that is on my Friends and Gilmore Girls TBR is Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. This is on the subset of my Friends and Gilmore Girls TBR that I decided to put together for books that were released during the years when Friends and Gilmore Girls were on. So this book came out in 1996, which was season 3 of Friends. The movie stars Brad Pitt and Edward Norton, Edward Norton was just in the movie I got back from seeing. I just started this book this afternoon. I'm not sure how I quite feel about it yet. I am only on chapter 6, And Gabby Reads recommended this video 3 months ago. She read this video for a Backlist Bonanza video 3 months ago, and I will tag that video in the description so you guys can see what she thought of it. I have a feeling I may end up sharing her opinion of this book and that it might be a DNF. I'm not sure. We'll have to see. The next book is also on my Let's Go to the Movies, Oscar-nominated movies book TBR. This book, The Fairy Tale Life of Dorothy Gale, is basically a contemporary retelling of The Wizard of Oz, and obviously is paired up with Wicked in the list I found on Instagram. I just started this book this afternoon, and I am on page 68. So, now that I have gone through my progress for my reading, let me just go through the other books that are on these TBRs, so that way you guys can get an idea of upcoming books that I will be reading for the next couple of months. These TBR thematic TBR lists basically cover books that I will be reading up until July. So, as I was saying, the book that I am the TBR for The Beauty of the Earth, which is books that I'm reading for Earth Day, include A Psalm for the Wild Built, Fires in Vesuvius, which is a nonfiction book that Olive recommended about the wildfires that were in Canada in 2016 or 2017. The next couple of books the next two books that I'm reading that are related to the environment. Well, these books are sort of all related to the environment, but one book I will be reading is called Silent Spring. This was written by Rachel Carson, who is a environmentalist in the 1960s, and this came out during the time when there was a lot of protests and stuff. So I'm very interested to see what this book was about and how it relates to our present day view of the environment. The next books, as I mentioned before, that I'm going to be rereading are The Light Pirate, which was a book I read for book club at the bookstore last year, and Their Eyes Are Watching God, which is a classic book by Zora Neale Hurston that came out in the 1950s that's set in Florida. The Light Pirate is also set in Florida, and both The Light Pirate focuses around the theme of global warming. Their Eyes Are Watching God doesn't really fit the theme of global warming, but I just picked it because it's set in the same place that The Light Pirate is set in. A memoir that I will be reading next month, is Wrapped in Rainbows. This is the memoir of the author who wrote Their Eyes Are Watching God. So I am excited to learn more about her and more about her writing career. The next TBR thematic focus is obviously From Manhattan to Stars Hollow. I mentioned a lot of these books in my last video, but I will mention a few of them again. One of them is Business Casual, and two of them are part of the Love Life Farm series. In the Weeds and Business Casual, which I'm looking forward to reading again. I just talked about Fight Club. The two other books I have read for this TBR that are part of this series are the books in the Dream Harbor series by Laurie Gilmore. I picked these books for this TBR because the town of Dream Harbor gives off similar vibes like the small town in Love Light Farms, which is very similar to Stars Hollow. So basically, all of the books in this series, except for The Christmas Tree Farm, has gotten 4 stars. And The Christmas Tree Farm got 3 stars because it was too spicy for a holiday book for me. Another book I just started listening to on audio for this TBR is One Day by David Nichols. And this just focuses on the life of two people named Dexter and Emily. I am literally not very far into this audiobook yet. I have only listened to 3 chapters, so I can't really comment on the story very much yet, but I will give more of my thoughts on what I think about it in future videos when I do progress notes videos. For the Let's Go to the Movies TBR, other books that are in this TBR are Mercury Pictures Presents Natural Beauty, Ours, Rogue by Mona Awad, Wicked by Gregory Maguire, of course, and I just finished rereading All's Well by Mona Awad, which was a 4.5-star read, and this also crosses over with the Gilmore Girls TBR because it describes Paris. The next TBR, thematic TBR, is Creatures of the Deep, books about ocean animals. This TBR is going to be started at the end of May, around Memorial Day weekend, and it will go until July, but I think I'll probably finish it by the middle of June. Most of these books were recommended to me by Olive at A Book Olive. The only one that wasn't was The Life Cycle of the Common Octopus, which was the read with Jenna pick for January. The first book is At Loggerheads by Kristen Ness, which is a thriller that is set on the island in North Carolina where there's a double murder of a human and a murder of a sea turtle. And the person who is one of the people who is solving the murder is a person who is a local sea turtle scientist. So I'm really excited about that. The next book in this TBR is Fathoms, which is a nonfiction book that is about whales. And there's a Disney Plus documentary that is narrated by Scarlett Johansson that we're going to be watching later in the spring or in the summer. That is about whales that we will be watching to pair up with this book. The next book is called My Life with Sea Turtles, which is a memoir of a woman who worked in an aquarium with sea turtles. Another memoir about somebody who worked with sea turtles is Of Time and Turtles by Cy Montgomery. Cy Montgomery is a children's book author from New Hampshire, but she has also written a few nonfiction books, Of Time and Turtles and The Soul of the Octopus. I read Of Time and Turtles in January, and I loved it. Basically, this was a memoir of Cy Montgomery working during the pandemic at a sea turtle rescue center in Massachusetts, and I really loved it. It was really interesting learning what goes on behind the scenes at a turtle rescue center. The next book I am going to be reading for this Creatures of the Deep TBR is Remarkably Bright Creatures, which was the 12th book in my 23 favorite books of 2023. So I'm excited to reread that book again this summer, or this spring going into summer. The next and final TBR that I'm going to be doing is a recent list of book recommendations I found on Instagram about books that are inspired by comfort TV shows. The first book that is on this TBR that these books will be read from April to June, but I started reading one now just so I can get ahead of myself a little. The book that I am reading, I mentioned in my previous progress video that I posted on Thursday. The other books that are in this TBR are The Authenticity Project, which is a book that is inspired by Modern Family, which I don't really know what this book is about, but I think it might have if it has The Authenticity Project, I'm interested to see what this book is about. The next book on this TBR is The Restaurant Critic's Wife, which is connected to Bob's Burgers. And I think this book probably would... I think there was an episode of Bob's Burgers. I haven't watched it yet, but I think there's an episode where there's a restaurant critic that comes in to write a review of the restaurant for the local paper. I don't know if we've watched that episode yet or not. We've seen about 6 or 7 episodes of Bob's Burgers, and if you haven't seen it yet, it's really funny. We have also seen the Bob's Burgers movie that came out last year, and it's so funny. You guys definitely need to watch that. The next book that's on this TBR is The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. This was recommended to me by Destiny and Sarah, and I believe that Rachel Catherine also read it. This is about a girl who loses her mother, or somebody in her family dies, and she has to, she gets invited to a family wedding, and there's a lot of tension at the wedding because of the death of her family member, and I am very excited. This is like a romance and a mystery because they're still trying to find out like how the relative passed away that died. And this book was on the recommendation list for One Tree Hill. And I am going to be starting to watch this in the fall with Kathleen because we are going to be doing a comparison between Chad Michael Murray's characters on Gilmore Girls and One Tree Hill, which should be really interesting because Tristan is kind of like a bad boy character, and I don't know much about his character from One Tree Hill because I haven't watched it yet, but from what I've read by the episode synopses on IMDb, he plays basketball, and that's all that I know. The last 2 books are connected to Golden Girls. These are the final 2 books on these TBR, by the way. The first one is The Summer Seekers, which is a book about a girl who works with an older woman, and they go on a road trip together because they're trying to, like, escape from their lives. And, this book is actually on my backdated TBR from last summer, because I put this on hold in July of last year, but the interlibrary loan system didn't get back into service until September, and I still need to get it because the computer system at the library recently went through another upgrade, so I think that book probably got lost in the system again, so I will be requesting that as a hold probably at the end of probably in a few weeks at the end of the month. And the final book on his TBR is The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This is a murder mystery book about a group of senior citizens who start a true crime club at their nursing home, and they end up having to solve a murder in their nursing home. This has been recommended by a lot of different booktubers, including Destiny, Sarah, Rachel, and Gabby. So I'm wicked excited to read it and see what I think of it. Another book that I think that matches up well with the Golden Girls, it's in the same genre that I gave 5 stars to last year, that I will definitely be reading again for this TBR, is Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. So I am excited about my summer reading plans. Have you read any of the books that I mentioned? Or watched any of the TV shows or movies that are paired up with certain books? If you have, tell me which books you have read in the comments. Thank you. Have a great night and a great rest of your weekend.